Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? That initial document that was leaked with my pastor's name on it, well, not really my, actually, he sent me a thing that says he was no longer my pastor. What a dick. That guy could get, by the way, nothing nice to say about him at all. But so the document, though, that revealed the pastor's name and one of Kayla's sisters as the people who reported it, unredacted. I don't have that. I don't have that. That is actually would be illegal for the state to give me that document unredacted the way it was leaked out the day after I was arrested. That leaking is actually illegal. Whoever did that violated Minnesota statutes that were supposed to protect the people reporting. But just to give people an idea of why at the beginning of this, I was so incensed at what happened and how it came about. At the end of the day, of course, I'm the guy who had the cocaine in his house, so it's my fault. That's on me. But if you complain about something, that doesn't mean that the other things that happened aren't true. But at the beginning of this, I was very angry for lots of reasons. Now, I just wanted it to be done and was ready for it to be done. I've been looking forward to Friday since January. Now the jail thing was a little bit of a surprise. The thing that makes you mad is that the people who made the reports, people think that is people from our church. They were not. I know exactly who all of them are. And the crazy thing is, every single story that was reported as part of that initial report, the report that got the cops to start investigating me, which then led to them seeing the live stream in which I had a really shitty day and stupidly used substances to try and compensate for that while going live. Bad choice. Very, very bad choice. But the people who reported that, the stories that they told, the ones that are out there, like me driving lethargic and then excited, like lethargic and high is what it said. They're all based on truth, and they're all knowing lies that were generated by people who had no idea about any drug use at all. They actually were suspicious of my relationship with April, so they decided to use that to involve the government to police my relationship decisions. And I'm not joking. In fact, one of the people directly involved told the CPS investigators that their purpose was to, because of the suspected relationship, take the children away from Kayla and I. That's what happened. Those people, I don't know when to talk about this. I have to have close contact with those people all the time. And it was not our church congregation. I know that Aaron's talked about that a lot. Like, oh, the church was staring at us, reading the Bible. If this retard thinks that a pastor wrote a sermon based on something that he might have noticed the week prior, that he wrote his Easter sermon, because it was Easter, was the church service that Aaron talks about a lot, where he felt super judged by everybody. That was all him. Like, that's just in his head. Pastors write their sermons, especially for big days like Easter, months ahead of time. They're not just winging it on the fly. But yeah, it's been a long year, because again, at the end of the day, it was still me who had the stuff. Like, that shouldn't have resulted in what it did. And there's some suspicious stuff still about the warrant, but hey, we lost his arguments in court. I don't think they were very well made. I don't want to shit on my lawyer. Lawyering's a really, really hard job. That's why I don't want to do it. That's why I'd much rather do this. This is much more natural for me. Lawyering's a very, very difficult job, and sometimes things get missed. And sometimes things aren't as well written, because in your head, you know what you want to say. Since you know the narrative, when you write the thing down, you're like, no, I said what I needed to say. And then someone else reads it and they're like, nope, I don't get this at all. The judge clearly didn't even get the argument that we were making. But at the same time, I don't think we were going to get the warrant thrown out. This is a very small county, and the judge going against any part of a drug raid jeopardizes just about everything. There was some shady stuff about the warrant, and there's still stuff in discovery that we never got. Stuff that actually matters. I will probably at some point go through some of the audio and video stuff from my case to illustrate specifically these types of instances. The way, like, I was not treated poorly, don't get me wrong, but I was treated with an uncharacteristic hostility from the detective who was the lead, I guess the lead detective who did the home raid. One of my favorite moments during this stupid thing was I was in jail, and they wanted to ask me some more questions. So I said, okay. I said, I'm not going to answer anything that, is a Fifth Amendment issue. Didn't really see any benefit to it, but I wanted to know what they were in, what they knew. But the first thing the cop does is sitting across from me. He says, I got you. And here I am, black eye, right? I think at this point they have me in my blue jumpsuit. I'm strung out at this point because I was sober when I was arrested. That doesn't mean I had been sober the entire time, leading up to that. So I'm just livid because I've had to endure having my house searched and find out my kids are gonna, be taken away for a day. That's what we were told, was that our kids would be taken away for a day just because we were gonna be, in jail overnight. So they bring me in for this interview, and he says, I got you. And I'm like, bro, I don't know anything about you. Have I been evading you? Have we been doing this dance for a while? But they acted like I mattered. But they acted like I was Scarface or something. This guy had been investigating me. So now that he finally got me, it's like, according to his search warrant, mind you, he'd been investigating me for at most 7 days. But the way he talked about it was as if he had been after me for months, which is what he indicated to me at my house. And he made a phone call to April's mother, told April's mother that she was high, which they didn't drug test any of us. So that was he just made that up. She also wasn't high. But he also told April's mother that they'd been looking into me for months. Now I have no discovery about this. All those documents just don't exist. And that phone call also just doesn't exist. And I hate that it's taken so long for me to start streaming, but it got to a point where eventually it was like, you've this far, that on April 18th, you're done. At that point that unless something crazy happens, you are being sentenced on April 18th. Just wait and don't anything up by talking. We were blindsided because the recommendation from the pre-sentence investigation of 28 days, but 30 days with 2 days already served of jail time came out of nowhere. And my plea agreement specifically relied on this, that there'd be no further executed jail time. That was a huge part of our negotiations. Now, it didn't make it into my plea document. My lawyer was not available for that plea hearing. And so his law partner came out to help. He and I didn't have the same rapport and the same amount of time spent with each other or anything like that. So I'm there pleading guilty to a felony, which is terrifying. If you've never done it, I don't recommend it. But so I reviewed the plea document, and in my head, it had, encapsulated the concept that there would be no further jail time. Because I was in the room with the prosecutor when she told my lawyer the state is not going to pursue further jail time. Like that happened. In my head now, like when I think back, I see that happening in the courtroom, but it didn't. I went through the transcript. 2 days ago, I would have swore to you that happened in court on the record, and it did not. I checked the transcript and it didn't. Well, it happened in the negotiation room. So when the pre-sentence investigation recommends this 28 days jail, that I thought, we had discussed there wasn't going to be any. I'm in full on panic mode because now, I find out like 3 or 4 days. I found out before you guys, obviously, but only by a couple days. And so then, I went into full on panic mode because I now didn't know if I was going to go home on Friday. So that was a possibility for me, and that is terrifying. We got confirmation on Thursday that the state was not going to ask for for any more than the executed jail time. It was in the report, but the state wasn't going to ask for it. And then on Friday, we went to court. The judge still actually ignored the state, and he, it's not a sentence, it's a probation condition, but he added the probation condition of 28 days jail time, 30 minus the 2. However, what everybody missed, the deferment is that I will not go to jail as long as I am compliant with probation on the date up through the date of the jail reporting, which should be August 1st. I believe it's 7 p.m. It's a lot different now. It used to be, I always liked when people met me out in public or wherever, it was fun. It's not always fun now. People have changed their tune, usually because they believe the most retarded accusation. They believe that I would give a child cocaine, which a couple things. One, that's absurd. No one wants, especially if you're partying in the way that I'm alleged to have been partying, you definitely don't want a child on a stimulant that will keep them awake and make them annoying. I don't know if you've ever been around people who are doing cocaine when you're not, they're annoying. So, you would never do that to a child just for the simple fact that it's really annoying. But 2, oh my God, you'd be putting your child in such horrific risk. None of that ever happened. And I that'll go with me to my grave both ways, because the internet has people who are stupid enough to think that it did. It definitely did not. There's no way I would ever do that. At some point, with Kayla's permission, I will probably play the audio recording of the CPS worker telling us about the test, which we were told about, I believe, one day before our hearing. We did not have the opportunity to hire an expert, and they didn't have to ever justify or validate the test. And I can explain this all at some point, but it's such a weird subject that combines all of these different factors. One with how juvenile and family court goes, and the reduced standard that they have, and the standard that they have to meet. It's 2 different standards. Sorry. The standard that they have to meet is just a preponderance of evidence, whereas in criminal court, they have to get beyond a reasonable doubt. But the other standard that they have to meet was not to prove that the child ingested a substance actually at all. All they had to prove was that there was a preponderance of the evidence, so 51% likelihood, that there was an ongoing issue with children's safety to be returned to the home. Because that's all they did, was to say that this test shows that something happened. And I can show you what happened, which I'll do eventually, because we have the officers touching my daughter's hair. And I'll show you the studies as to how cocaine gets into hair. Cocaine specifically gets, and the metabolite, I know, but I'll show you the studies about how it gets into a hair follicle during the washing process, which is supposed to cleanse that. But this all is there. Now, the great thing is, since they never accused us of doing anything, they didn't accuse us of exposing our child to cocaine or anything like that, we never got the chance to defend it. But you'll hear us when they told us about it. And one of the things people are like, why didn't you get another test? Well, 2 very simple reasons. The child is not in your legal custody or physical custody, so you can't. I could not have taken my child to go get a test, a follow-up test. And 2, we demanded it from the state. And the state said they were not interested in pursuing a follow-up test. And then they never actually used it beyond just showing that there was an issue with children's safety that needed to be resolved before the children could be returned home. This is The problem that the state had is up until that test came in, they had nothing as a factor for why the children could be out of the home, because all of the children specifically said they had never been exposed to drugs. And if they had been exposed to drugs, it would have been from someone else. Now, I say they specifically said that. The state led that question to all 5 of my children, which is why I mentioned it in court. I was like, a 7-year-old isn't going to say that, because a 7-year-old doesn't know what cocaine is, like that. They don't know what drugs are, at all. So why would they say this? It's only because the county worker led them through that question. That was it. However, all of the kids said they'd never seen, been exposed to drugs. They'd never seen their parents intoxicated. We were blown away, and we wanted to find out. Like, we don't actually know that our child was exposed at all, because it could have been a sample error. Every lab has a sample swap rate where sample of hair comes in, and for whatever reason, the labels get swapped. And each lab has a rate that they keep track of that should be disclosed in discovery. We never got that. They should also have just a general failure rate, both false positives and false negatives, that get overturned on, confirmation or whatever. We didn't get that either. We didn't get any of the tools to fight it, because they never actually used it. It just got used for that one thing. But people ask, like, why didn't you get another test? You have no physical custody, so you can't grab your kid and take them. In fact, we, at that point especially, we weren't even allowed to see them, which was crazy to us. But the second thing is, you don't have legal custody. So making that legal decision would have to involve the county. And we asked them, they said no. And I'll tell you, there was one point very late in the case. We are almost done at this point. It's like 2 months out. And the guardian ad litem in our case did not like the fact that one of our children was reporting inappropriate behavior by someone who was around and associated with the county government. Okay. Inappropriate behavior that made one of my children uncomfortable in ways that would infuriate people if I disclose details. And at some point I may. When my child reported that, the guardian ad litem said my child was lying and threatened to remove all of our children to out of family foster care. We're 2 months from having our case closed. That's what you're up against with the government. But our kids came back in 5 months, which is the fastest anyone could find in this county. We requested a redo of the hair follicle test immediately. The moment she says it, first I said, that's impossible. And then she was smiling, by the way, the investigator. This investigator literally believed Aaron Imholte when he said that I was a cult leader and that Kayla and April were under my thrall, that they didn't have the ability to make choices. This CPS investigator believed that. Idiocy. It's like, bro, your wife left you. Like, it wasn't me. I mean, it kind of was, but it wasn't me who did it. She was leaving you before I met you. It was a matter of time. But he just can't deal with the fact that he's a giant pile of shit. And so it had to be me, and I had to be using mind control. The crazy thing is, and he'll never admit this, but who cares? Because I regret this. I regret this 1,000,000%. I probably preserved their marriage 6 to 10 times, where his marriage would have ended a long time before. And I definitely regret that. I didn't know about the abuse at the time. So I was like, no, you gotta, like, you can preserve your marriage. You can do it. Like, you can resolve these problems, et cetera, et cetera. One, I was really wrong. I just didn't know him that well at the time. But two, I did not know that he was physically abusive towards his wife. And so I was trying to keep them together because I believe in the institution of marriage. I know people laugh at that, but that's okay. I don't actually believe in the institution anymore. I think just based on my personal experiences, protecting the institution for the sake of the institution is stupid. And so some people's marriages should be preserved and some shouldn't. That one should not have. but it wasn't me who did it. I was just a good catalyst for it, I guess. But yeah, it's that whole thing. Because his wife left him, it had to be, and this is how narcissists work. It had to be someone who took her, someone who took her away from him. It couldn't possibly be that he was a giant asshole. Now, he hand wrote a letter about how much of an asshole he was, which I had. I had the letter in my possession because he was a state witness against me, and that letter discredits him entirely. It's very funny. But it was someone else's that they lent to me. But it looks like a child scrawled it out in pen. And I was just waiting for the day I got to drop that in court. Because, like, if we did go to trial, well, there would have been some moves to exclude certain witnesses based on being giant dorks. But if we had to go to trial, that letter was coming out. And the state had no idea that we had it. I don't think Aaron even knows that we have it. I saw a clip. I think it was in the past couple days. He was talking about the letters of support that came from Megan Fox, my wife, my mom, and my dad. That's it. I didn't want to. You can flood the court with a bunch of letters of support. They don't usually help that much, and I didn't want to annoy the judge. And he said they're curiously written in Nick's voice. So apparently I wrote those letters of support. Ha, Megan, you idiot. You thought you wrote that letter. I see you in the chat. I didn't tell you that I wrote a letter and signed your name to it. Just so you know. Sorry.